It's Radio Free 501c, the podcast of Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'm Cecilia Sepp, your host. Welcome to Season 7. This episode is supported by USAE News, the weekly community newspaper of associations, CVBs, and hotels. Learn more about USAE News at usaenews.com. He's back. It's my friend and publisher, Carl Weaver, and he's here with another interesting question in our movie series. How are associations like the movie Cool Hand Luke? I don't know, but he's going to tell us. It's Monday, July 21st, 2025. Welcome to episode 293. Hey everybody, it's Monday, July 21st, and that means it's time for another episode of Radio Free 501c, brought to you by Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'm your host, Cecilia Sepp. I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips, and I want to thank you for joining us this week. Before we dive into our rather unusual topic, I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to our global audience, wherever you may be. And quick reminder, if you haven't subscribed yet or followed us, please take a moment and do that, because we're having a lot of really interesting conversations this year, like this one. So I'm joined again by returning guest, Carl Weaver. And Carl, welcome back. Before we get to your question, would you like to say hello to the audience and tell them a little about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Cecilia, and thanks for having me on again. It's always a joy to be here with you. And so I'm Carl Weaver. I'm the president of Broken Column Press, where we help you go from ideation to publication. So we let you do the creative stuff, and we'll help you do that. But all that in between stuff, between you thinking of an idea and a book being online, we'll take care of all that other stuff. So
Oh,
that's
that's great. And I love that tagline, ideation to publication. That's
yeah,
excellent.
yeah. It's. I thought it was catchy, so I've been running with it.
I love it. That's great. Short, sweet, to the point, and it rhymes.
Yeah.
So,
It's my Muhammad Ali moment.
so you're definitely the Muhammad Ali of publishing. I'll give you that.
I am. I've been telling people.
So, Carl, you have once again brought a question like you have
Yes.
before. And what is your question?
Well, today, Cecilia, my question is, how are associations like the movie Cool Hand Luke?
Ooh, I like that movie. And so does our hopefully continuing supporter, USAE News, who's supporting this episode. So thank you, USAE News. So, Carl, what are your thoughts on how our associations like the movie Cool Hand Luke?
Well, it's funny you should ask. I've got some notes here. Well, there's first of all, if you haven't seen the movie, you need to go watch it. It's a fantastic movie, and it's one of Dennis Hopper's very early movies. So I don't know what his earlier movies were, but it's also a very young Dean Stanton, if you're a fan of his.
Wow.
Yeah. It starts off with Paul Newman's character cutting the heads off of parking meters. And do you know why he did that?
Because he thought it was a good idea at the time.
Yeah, isn't that like a lot of what associations do sometimes is we do things because we think they're good ideas, and there may not be data behind it. We can't always enumerate why we're doing it. New generations come in and ask why, and it's because that's what we've been doing.
Yes. And so, because he took this action that seemed like a good idea at the time, Cool Hand Luke, aka Paul Newman, ends up in a southern prison camp. So, not thinking things through and having enough data can get you in a bad place.
Yeah, it's a reminder to be data driven. If he'd thought about the data or taken some time to analyze the situation, he may not have done that.
No, I agree, but we also should point out to the audience, since not everybody has seen the movie, he was very drunk at the time, which is why he did it.
Yeah.
And there's also George Kennedy. If you're all familiar with George Kennedy's also in the movie, he becomes friends with Luke.
Hmm.
And so he becomes kind of like an anti-hero to the other prisoners, because he's always trying to break out. He's always trying to get away, do something different. And he's doing unusual things. Like, what do you think's the most unusual thing Luke does in the prison camp to break the boredom?
Luke eats 50 eggs.
Yeah. Ooh. Ugh.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, can you imagine that? So, and it was it was based on a bet. Yeah, like my boy Luke can do anything. Dragline says a George Kennedy character, and and somehow it comes out, yeah, I can eat a whole bunch of eggs. Well, how many can you eat? 50. And why 50? Well, it seemed like a good round number, he said. Why not 36? Well, 50's good round number. But that's a good question. I think, it seems impossible to be able to do that. In the movie, he does it. But associations are often asked to do the impossible.
Mhm.
We're asked to do things that, and sometimes we surprise ourselves and we can do it. But a lot of times it's just stuff that, you're not sure it makes sense, but, someone asks you to do it and there's pressure from the industry or whatever, pressure from the board. Again, I don't think this was particularly data driven on his part.
No, it really wasn't. He just pulled that number out of thin air, like you said, and then they made a bet on it. And I think a lot of times our boards do that.
Hmm.
They're trying to make a decision, and they say, "Well, that seems like a good number. Let's just do it, and let's see what happens." And it's like, okay, well, Luke actually got very sick after eating because what we didn't mention is it was 50 hard-boiled eggs, not
Hmm.
like 50 scrambled eggs, or thank God they weren't raw eggs, although that might have gone faster than
Yeah,
eating.
that'll be for the how are associations like Rocky
Yeah, exactly.
episode.
How are they like Rocky? But
Yeah.
the other thing about the movie that I often think about is Luke continues to extend his prison sentence because he keeps doing stupid things. So did you notice that in your viewing of the film?
I did, yeah. And I had forgotten his original sentence was 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's a harsh prison camp. It's in the South and it's hot and they're doing heavy manual labor. But I was thinking, I think I'd do the 2 years than all this other stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I thought 2 years was pretty excessive for just cutting the heads off parking meters.
Yeah, I don't know what that I mean that's destruction of public property. It probably cost a whole bunch of money to repair them and
Yeah.
I don't know what that should be, that sentence. But 2 years, uh not that I know what prison is like. I do not. But 2 years of prison versus 2 years of hard work in a very hot prison camp. I think I I think I just wouldn't do that's sort of my data analysis. I wouldn't cut the heads off the meters.
Yeah, there you go. It's like, or at least don't get caught if you do it. So, not getting caught is the operative part of that statement, I think.
I mean,
But
we're
when
both younger children, so we know about that, right? Watch,
that's
do it a
right.
different way.
Just don't, yeah. And so the other thing about this movie is the relationship that the prisoners have with, I'm not quite sure what you call him, he's like a drill sergeant. He kind of runs the camp,
The captain, yeah.
captain, and they have to ask him permission for every little thing.
Hmm.
Did that resonate with you at all about associations?
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely worked there. Yeah, yeah, we see that a lot. It's like, there's a controlling board or there's a controlling executive team, sometimes micromanaging people and micromanaging processes and stuff like that. Yeah, so they have to say, take my shirt off, boss. He's working on the highway, getting, sweaty. Take it off, Luke. Gotta get water, boss. He's gonna, ask permission for every little thing. And that's really inefficient. Something that I've always felt as a manager is, you hire the right people if you can. You don't always know if you are, but hire the right people and let them surprise you with their ingenuity. Give them the guidance they need and ask for, but let them do most of the work. Give them a task. Say, okay, here you go. Uh, clear the ditch of the weeds. That's all you have to tell them, And if
Yeah.
they need a tool, they'll ask you, or if they need to know how to do it, you show them and they'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to do the same thing. I'm very much a hands-off manager. It's like you're here to do your work, I'm here to do my work, and I'm here to help you if you need it. So
Mhm.
go do this thing. If you need help, come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll show you how to do it once if you need it. If not, let me know when you need something. We'll make it happen together.
Yeah, exactly, because that's why it's a team.
Hmm.
If you do everything yourself, then there's no team, and
Right.
and I'm one of those jerky people who just like tells people what I think. So like when I was managing a staff once, a team in my department, and somebody's come in, they basically wanted me to do it for them. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it for you, then what do I need you for?
Yeah.
I should just eliminate your position and give myself a raise if I'm going to do both jobs.
Hmm.
Probably not
Exactly.
what people want to hear, but
Well, I mean, but that's real, right? You have to, like as a manager, you have to sort of direct people and help them, help facilitate, them doing the job, but it's really their job to do.
yeah, exactly. And, I was always very helpful. I was available. I would stop what I was doing if somebody had a question, but don't come in and ask me to do your work for you because
Yeah.
that's not going to fly. And having played team sports growing up, you have to play your position or the team doesn't move forward. And
Hmm.
if somebody cuts you off or gets in your way, you're not going to be able to do your work. You're not going to be able to play your role and do what you need to do. So that's really a lot of it. Now, on it, getting back to the Cool Hand Luke story, though, uh, the team was actually all the prisoners
Hmm.
trying to stay out of trouble. Although Luke was always the outlier on that, and I think we need to explain how Luke got his nickname Cool Hand Luke. Would you like to explain that?
Sure. It came in a poker match, a poker game, and Luke, it turns out, was bluffing the whole time. And and so they finally, like, he's raising it, and they finally call for to show the cards, and after he won, he shows his hand, and it was just a trash hand. Like, there's not a pair even, there's nothing. And Dragline, the George Kennedy character, says that was, you can do that if you've got a real cool hand or something like that. Or
Well, it's actually because sometimes nothing is a cool hand too.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Paul Newman says that. So they start calling him Cool Hand Luke. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's true because I love a good bluff because
Hmm.
you can get out of a difficult situation with a good bluff. But in that, when you're playing poker, that's a big part of the game. Can you keep a straight face when you've got nothing?
Yeah.
And and then sometimes because Luke was really a troublemaker and they just kept adding time on to his sentence. I don't remember exactly how many years he was at by the time the movie ended, but it was way beyond 2 years. And he spent
Hmm.
a lot of time in what they call the box, which is like a punishment room. It's sort of like solitary confinement, but it is solitary confinement, but in a very hot little tiny building that they've built for that purpose. So when you come out, you're kind of worn out and exhausted by the time
Yeah.
you're out of it. So, did that resonate at all with you when it comes to associations?
Yeah, in a couple ways. So at the beginning of the movie, when he goes to the prison camp, someone's given, it's like five new guys in the camp, and he's telling them, this is your spoon. If you lose your spoon, you're going to go to the box. If this is your shirt, with the certain number, you got to memorize your number for laundry. If you forget your number, you go to the box. If you sit on no man's allowed to sit on the bed with the dirty trousers, because they didn't want to have to sully everything. If you do that, you're going to the box. And it reminded me that there are a lot of programs and systems and associations that are not personalized. Like,
Mm.
that's a very it's just a uniform thing. Like, you do this, you go to the box, as opposed to, maybe I'm just too kind and understanding. Like, dude, why did you sit on your bed with the dirty trousers? You're not supposed to do that. Let's talk about it. But
Let's talk about, oh, gee, if only all prisons were like that. Let's just talk about what you did
I
wrong.
know, like, let's have the sing kumbaya and go home.
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't that be nice? Just
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, I've learned my lesson. I'll go back
yeah,
now and be a good citizen. But
yeah.
that is true. And I think a lot of times when we've mentioned management approaches already, I think a lot of times in associations, people feel scared to
Mm,
suggest anything new, or they're afraid to bring something up. Definitely with the work that I do in ethics, I have learned over the years that creating that psychological safety is really important.
yeah.
And it's something Shellrock and I talk about in our regular ethics course. And when I'm out working with other people on ethics, talk about that as well, because people feel afraid to point out, hey, somebody's doing something wrong, or I have been harassed, or just seeing something that's just not right. And because I think they feel like they're going to get put in the box, like they're
Hmm.
not going to get promoted, they're not going to get a new opportunity, they may even be fired, which is like the ultimate box. For ultimately boxing you, you're never coming back.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing about the movie Cool Hand Luke. You, like you just said, anything you did wrong, you go to the box.
Yeah, it's one uniform punishment for every infraction.
Yeah.
And maybe that's appropriate for I'm not a criminal justice person. I haven't studied that, punishment and stuff like that. But maybe that's appropriate, but it's definitely not something that's personalized. Just like a lot of our programs at associations sometimes are it's for everyone. This program is for everybody, and it's not, there's no personalization at all. It's just, this is how it works. Maybe it fits your business, maybe it doesn't. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. And is there enough for everybody that they're going to get that personal or unique experience? And yes, it's a good start to personalize emails like dear first name field. It's not a good idea to send the email where it says dear first name field, which I have
There's a
gotten
lot.
those in the past and they just make me laugh and I delete them. I'm
Yeah,
just, yeah, okay, try again. So
yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, so you're right. That one uniform punishment is like the one service. Well, this is just what you're going to get, and that's it. If you like it or not, no, we're not going to listen to you. No, we're not going to change anything. And that's really in the movie, that is what Luke is pushing against. He is pushing
Hmm.
against authority. He's pushing against everybody being the same. He's really fighting for the individual, and that's why he becomes something of a folk hero. And there's actually a montage in the movie of how many times he tried to escape on foot. Like he just was like trying to run and they keep catching him and bringing him back. And
Hmm.
one thing, as I was thinking about our episode today, I was thinking about the fact that he did get really far at one point. He got all the way to Las Vegas and mailed back a picture of himself in Vegas
Yeah.
with beautiful women. And so then they, of course, came and caught him and brought him back. But then that is like he broke away, he got out of it, he went to a new place and did something new. But then he did an action where he ended up right back where he started.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of times associations do that. We're always talking about change and change management and adapting to the future and being in the now. But we always seem to bring ourselves back where we were, that we were trying to improve.
Hmm. No, that's a really good point. I had not thought about that. But yeah, totally valid. Moving forward shouldn't mean moving back, or ending up at the same spot. We should be, and if it does, there should be room to try new things, to adapt and improvise things.
Mhm.
But don't keep doing them if they keep leading you back to the same spot. If they don't enhance membership, they don't result in new revenue or enhanced revenue or something, like whatever your goal is. Yeah, they're probably not worth doing.
Right. Well, and that's a good point. I think too often, especially boards, they want the status quo with a different outcome.
Hmm.
And not to be board bashing, but I think it's because they like the way things are and they're comfortable, but they know it could be improved. But in order to change, you can't have that status quo. So that's what he really does at the prison camp. He completely shakes up the status quo because he's never following the rules. He's always trying to escape. He pokes him in the nose when he actually does get away and gets all the way to Las Vegas. But then he gives them the means with which to capture him again by
Hmm.
know where he is. So it's kind of like we shoot ourselves in the foot. It's like something I have been saying for years. We're all the architects of our own destruction. And I think he's a great example of that because because we will undermine ourselves. We will make a choice that's not the best choice for us or our organization. For whatever the reason might be, like going back to the beginning of Luke's story, why the heck did you cut every single parking meter head? Well, and he was honest, though. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And I think that's where a lot of associations make decisions. Well, it seems like a good idea. Let's try it without.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's a recurring theme. We talked about oh, I can't see it here. Oh, well, cutting the heads out the meters. Like, why is he doing that? That doesn't seem well thought out. There's also the episode in there where he's being punished for, I think it was his last time running, and they say, "Well, you got your dirt in Boss King's ditch, and he's got to dig all his dirt out of the ditch. Like, you can't put your dirt in my yard, you know." So he's got to fill the hole back in, and they just wear him down. And it's obvious in the movie; it's a punishment. So we know why it's happening in the movie. But how many times have we seen things like that? Like, I just keep doing the same thing over and over and keep getting told not to do it that way with no instruction or guidance for how to do it the
Or
right
you
way.
make an improvement and they tell you to undo the improvement because you didn't run it by a committee first.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think we really need to stop punishing ourselves like that. I seriously, a lot of people are talking about board performance recently. A lot of people are talking about improved governance, but we're the ones who make these choices and we're the ones who make the decisions and we're the ones who put ourselves into a situation, but we're also the ones who can get ourselves out of it. One of the best quotes that I've ever heard is from the author of the book Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know if y'all remember that book, but that was the author. He was basically homeless and trying to raise a child as a single parent, and somehow was able to create a Wall Street career doing this. And that's what his story is. And Will Smith plays him in a movie called Pursuit of Happiness. But I got to hear him speak and then go to his book signing. But during his speech, what he said was, "You drove yourself into this parking lot. You can drive yourself out."
Mm-hmm.
I think that is really what Luke was chasing, but he just needed the drama, the drama of the constant fighting, the constant back and forth, the constant "I'm tweaking your nose, I'm making fun of your rules, I don't care about your rules." So he was doing that to himself. It's like, why don't, if you get out and get all the way to Vegas, why are you letting them know where you are? It just doesn't make any sense. But at the end of the movie, it, we're just going to talk about it because we need to. Luke ends up dying at the end of the movie, but he dies with a smile on his face
Mm-hmm.
because he lived his life his way despite spending a good portion of the end of it in the prison camp. But one of the great lines in this movie, and you may have heard it, audience, and not realized it was from this movie. What we have here is a failure to communicate.
I've never known an association to not communicate well.
I think you are being sarcastic. I
I
think,
am. I
right?
am.
I have to ask people sometimes because, like, I have a smart mouth, so I tend to be sarcastic. But I actually have a candle that my husband gave me as a gift that says "runs on caffeine and sarcasm." Yeah, pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
So, but it's true. Like, we don't communicate well with our members all the time. We don't communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We don't communicate with our board well. Sometimes our board doesn't communicate well with each other in the board, in their board group. And this can cause a lot of unnecessary problems, which is really what the line boss was trying to get across to all these prisoners. We have a failure to communicate because you're not paying attention to what I'm telling you and how you can get through your sentence with the least possible discomfort.
Yeah, and how many of us have been part of member satisfaction surveys where it comes out two-thirds of the members have no idea about this program you've been putting so much money into.
Yeah.
I'm like, and granted, that's so. I mean, we're all guilty of this. We get emails every day from like, I don't know, I get 100, 200 emails a day. A lot of them I either don't look at or I just delete. You
Mhm.
know, so I'm probably missing out on some of my AAA members benefits. Yeah, I'm probably missing out on some of my AARP members benefits. Not that I'm old enough to be an AARP member, but I am. And so I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can all do better about, but realistically, not all the members are going to read everything. So you have to reach out. This gets back to personalization. We think this program's really important. Well, who's now taking part in it? Who's eligible and should be taking part in it? Just go target those people. Do a little personalized outreach. Uh,
Yeah. Well, right. And let people create their own experience to a certain
mhm,
extent. I know that we're having the conversation about AMS versus not AMS and using integrations and Wicket and all that kind of good stuff. But I think a lot of associations still use an integrated AMS. And a lot of the newer ones let the member manage their record and share information through the system, through the member portal and find the information that they want to find. And I think that's really empowering to the members because
mhm.
you're letting them create their own member experience. But because I do have a smart mouth, I have to go back to your AARP comment. The problem with AARP is everybody qualifies for membership now because they keep lowering the age that you can join. I think it's 15 now. I think if you're a high school sophomore, you can join AARP.
Yeah, I think there's some legal thing with that. Wasn't there years ago where they said, well, if you're X years or older, you can join, but then they said, well, that's discriminating based on age, so it wasn't legal. I've heard something about that. I don't know if there's truth in that or not.
OJ, I hadn't heard that. I mean, but isn't that like saying a plumber can join the American Medical Association?
No, because that has to do with credentials and education and stuff.
Huh, okay. But, why would a young person want to join a retired person's group? But then again, they don't go by retired persons anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not retired.
Yeah, they go by, yeah.
I'm
It's like,
just old.
but seriously, I know it's like
I'm
older,
I'm
older.
well aged. Yes.
We're aging. We're not old. It's like, yeah, it's like last week I was at the salon getting my nails done, and I was with a different manicurist, and she was like, "What are you talking about retiring for? You're just a baby." And I was like, "Oh." I'm like, "Well, not quite a baby, but okay." I'll take that. I just like because the age thing, it's okay. So now we're going to go over on demographics for a minute here because we just have to. But age, height, weight, hair color, skin color, does it really matter? Because the point is you're still here. And when we've all been five, and now some of us are older than that, and that's just who we are now. So it's like one time I was on a conference call years ago, and I made a reference to that old TV show, Happy Days.
Oh,
And
yes.
somebody on the call said, "Oh, be careful, you're showing your age." And I said, "Everybody's showing their age. They're just at a different point in the timeline."
Yeah.
Right. Because it's true, because when you're five, you're five. You're showing that I'm only five. So I don't know any better than to put my finger into the light socket,
Yeah.
or light matches and throw them across the room. So hopefully we mature as we get older and get more experience. But that brings us back to Cool Hand Luke, because he obviously wasn't learning very much from his experiences and where he was going with his choices and actions. He really didn't seem to get the point. You're just going to keep ending up in the box because we'll just keep making a new rule about when you end up in the box. You
Oh,
look
yeah.
funny, you're going in the box.
Yeah. In fact, the he didn't go in the box for this, but there was a scene where he started to get on the bad side of the bosses, It's when they're doing the road tarring. So they're spraying the tar and oil on the road and they're throwing the dirt on top of it. And Luke says, well, let's work fast and we'll get done sooner. And so they turned the 1 day job into like a 2 or 3 hour job or something. And of course they didn't have any more work for the inmates to do. And Luke was a hero to the inmates, but he was definitely the bosses took note of him, sort of bucking the system and being too efficient.
Be too efficient. Oh, yeah, because what are we going to do with you the rest of the day?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've seen that sort of thing. And this isn't an association thing necessarily, but various workplaces, don't work too hard, you don't finish too soon, stretch out the work all day, you know, stuff messages like that. That's more of a larger corporate thing, I think, than a smaller organization thing.
That's right, because you don't want to make the other people look bad.
Yeah, I am also not always good at biting my tongue, Cecilia. And I had a boss once. I was working for an auto parts store, and I was busy, organizing stuff and working the overflow or the overstock stuff, and because that's all just money sitting on a shelf somewhere. And
Mhm.
um, and so I was working hard doing that. My boss says, "Hey, Carl, don't work too hard." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You're making me look bad." I said, "Maybe you need to work a little harder." Probably not politically wise to say, but if you ever catch yourself saying that someone's working too hard or makes you look bad, you're probably looking at the wrong things. You should be
Yeah,
appreciative of that.
that's true because a lot of times people come in with a great idea and maybe it needs, to be tweaked a little bit or, maybe get some other people's input or something, but it's still a good idea. But you bring in a good idea and somebody quashes it
Hmm.
because they think it makes them look bad because they didn't have a new idea, or you're setting the bar too high, or why are you trying to set yourself apart? And it's like,
Hmm.
am I really trying to set myself apart, or am I just trying to enjoy my work and do a good job?
Yeah. Or am I just better at it?
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
See,
that's
see,
probably not the thing to say either, but
no, it's not. I was just going to say, when your boss said, you're making me look bad, my response probably would have been, well, I don't think you need any help with that. You make yourself look bad all by yourself.
yeah.
Uh, but I'm surprised I have not been fired from more jobs, I'll be honest, because I do have a smart mouth. So it's just really another thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up, though, about Cool Hand Luke. There's a scene in there that probably gets cut out a lot in commercial television where there's a beautiful woman scantily clad washing her car very sensuously because she knows the prisoners can see her. So she's basically putting on a show for them. And they get very distracted by this woman and don't do their work. So they get in trouble. So to me, that kind of represents what we call the bright, shiny object that distracts our volunteer leaders. Is that what you took away from that scene?
That I couldn't have. I was trying to figure out exactly how that fit in. I guess I was distracted too. But yeah, yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, the bright shiny object. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
We get distracted and we think, oh, this is more important than everything else, and um, it's often not.
Yeah. And it had nothing to do with the road work they were doing.
Right. Yeah.
And, but then she was distracting them on purpose because that gave her power over them.
Hmm.
And I think we see that power dynamic sometimes in a negative way in associations. Many years ago, I had a volunteer leader who was mentoring me early in my career, and she told me there's no money in nonprofits, and that's why everybody fights over power and influence. And
Mm.
that's really a lot of the underlying themes in Cole Hand Luke, in my opinion, is they're really fighting over power and influence. Who actually has the power and then who is actually influencing? So Luke's very much an influencer. He
Hmm.
doesn't have any real power, but he's an influencer. So he gets the prisoners to do things they might not normally do. And he gets the prisoners to work together and act as a group. Whereas you have the boss and he's got the power. And so that's why he comes down so hard on people because he doesn't want to lose that power.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, and there's I mean the argument that I hear when I hear people say there's no money in nonprofits, honestly there is. That's usually so I'm going to say something a little controversial here, but
Okay.
I hear that from executives who are often getting paid well, but want to pay 25 bucks an hour to someone below them.
Yeah.
There's no money here, except for, yeah, like I'm getting it and they're getting it,
Yeah.
but you can't have it, you know.
Except for the six figure I'm getting,
Yeah.
and trade associations do have money.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
where you see not a lot of money is professional societies.
Mm,
And you also see sometimes, at least I've seen in my career, a lot of salary inequity, or I
hmm
should say inequality, because people doing the same job with the same experience levels don't get paid the same. That was a little controversy at a place I worked at years ago, and somebody actually left his salary up on his computer screen for me to see so that I could see he was making more money than me, even though I had more experience.
hmm
And so I saw that and I went to senior management and I brought that up and I was like, well, he works hard, but I do too. And I have more experience than he does. Well, what you do doesn't bring in revenue.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was, what? I'm like, these chapter relations jobs are really important too. Working with all the members and keeping them happy. You can't put a
Mhm.
price on that. So you see that a lot too, because always in these prison movies, there's always the prisoners who are like, the kiss asses, right? They're like,
Yeah.
oh, boss, you're so wonderful, boss. What can I do for you, boss? Can I bring you some water, boss? And so you always kind of have those kind of people as well. And that just makes it harder for everybody else, I think. Of course, in a prison, you probably do whatever you can to make your life a little more comfortable.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we've probably all had a job that we hated, that we felt like we were in prison.
hmm Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So,
I worked at one place that, getting back to your revenue comment, I got my annual review and it was like 1 through 5, all these categories. I got straight threes. I go to my boss. I said, "I've been doing a good job, right? I mean, you say it's good. What's going on?" She says, "Oh, we don't give anything above 3 to people who don't bring in money." I said, "Well, I'm a technical editor. I'm not the guy who's in charge. I'm not a business development person. I'm not selling your products. So because I'm not a salesperson, I can't get a 5." She said, "That's right." And that was the HR director actually who said that. Uh, so yeah, it blew my mind.
that
It,
is so unfair,
yeah.
because we're supposed to be evaluating people on their work and their performance, not on if they're bringing in money.
Especially
Because
if it's not their
otherwise,
job.
I'm sorry.
Especially if that's not part of their job.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's why we build a team. We don't have all salespeople on the team
hmm
because somebody's got to make sure the rent gets paid
Yeah.
and the operations run smoothly and members get the services they need. Membership directors do not bring in money either unless they want to count the dues. I mean, they might say, oh, well, you bring in dues money. But really, a big part of that is making sure that the members are engaged and know how to fully use their membership and being able to answer their questions, making them feel welcome, and then getting them to renew. And so, yeah, okay, people are gonna be like, well, says, oh, yeah, that's bringing in money then. You're bringing in dues, but you bring in more than dues if you're a membership director. You're bringing in relationships more than anything else. Anybody can send out an invoice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is building the relationship, like you said, which leads to longer average lifespan of a member, the
Mm-hmm.
membership. And it could lead to them spending more money on the extra programs or education or whatever. You're increasing that revenue curve, that revenue line. So, I mean, even though maybe you're not asking for money and you don't come in with a giant check or something, doesn't mean you're not part of that team.
Right, because everybody contributes something
hmm
of value. It's just some of the things we contribute are intangible.
Exactly.
And that's the difference between value and ROI.
Hmm.
ROI is measurable. I can say I invested $500 and got 1,500 back, but value is what I decide it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, and membership is one of those weird things where some people will join an organization and never really be active and never go to the events and not really do very much with it, and they'll keep their membership for 25 years.
Mhm.
Other people will get involved really quickly, and you think they're happy and everything seems good, and they last 2 years. Like it's really hard to get a beat on some of that stuff, but the more types of things you offer them, the more contact you have with them, it usually ends up being a better thing. You can't account for that person who's gonna, pull pegs and leave, after 2 years after having done everything and they got value from it. It's
Yeah, but then, yeah, and then they didn't see it anymore, or maybe they got treated badly,
yeah.
or they felt left out at a certain point.
Hmm.
And that's a whole other thing, at least in the prison camp, all the prisoners were included in the work.
Yeah, and at the prison camp, you don't need to do a an exit survey with people who leave. Like, why did you choose not to remain in prison?
Why did you
Were we
not
not
break
good
the
enough?
rule? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, I think we've probably used up every example from Cool Hand Luke. So before we wrap up this episode, which as always, Carl, always fun having you on and having these meandering conversations where we never know where we're going to end up. And I want to once again thank USAE News for your patience with this episode and having a good sense of humor about it. So, Carl, when we wrap up, I like to ask my guests, what's the one thought you'd like the audience to take away today? And then how can they get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you can do for them at Broken Column Press?
So, the thing that I'd say to take away from this or any of your conversations is be willing to take a risk. Don't take dumb risks. Don't cut the heads off meters. That's a big risk with a very bad consequence. Uh, but take a risk where it makes sense and where you can afford to. Try something new. Listen to your employees. Try to empower them to make good decisions. Uh, I think we don't do enough of that. But if you want to get in touch with me, learn about how you can also publish a book, which is your calling card that other people pay to own, and contact me at brokencolumnpress.com or cweaver at brokencolumnpress.com. That was a lot to say.
That's
Sorry.
great. You can find him anywhere, folks. Find him on LinkedIn. Broken Column Press published my book on chapter relations. If you want to check that out, it's called Association Chapter Systems from Frustrating to Fruitful.
Hmm.
So hope you get a copy. It's a small book full of a lot of good ideas. At least I like to think so.
I think so too. And, if you're in that world of sort of managing chapters and affiliates, all this component relation stuff, you really need to look at that. It's maybe not exactly what's on the CAE exam, but
Right.
it's definitely a good alternative for how to run that sort of program.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. And thanks for saying that, Carl. Yeah. And the book is not, while it focuses on chapters, it really talks a lot about relationships and how we can make them better and thus make the association world a better place. And I talk a lot about the future in the book because the chapter system needs to change and evolve. And I know there's a lot of other well-known people out there talking about that topic as well. So check out all the good information on chapter relations evolution that we have going on right now. So, but we have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next time with another exciting topic. So, one more reminder, please subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast service so you don't miss any of these great conversations we're having this year. We've had a few returning guests, but a lot of our guests in 2025 have been first time guests on this podcast anyway. So we're trying to bring a lot of new voices and different ideas to Radio Free 501c. So hopefully you will continue to follow us. And we are on every major podcast service if you haven't subscribed yet. And if you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting and how we can help your organization bloom outside the box, check out our website, roguetulips.com. Not Rouge Tulips, Rogue Tulips. And check out our blog page to find out what's on my mind this week, because you never know what I'm going to say or talk about. And you can find this podcast episode featuring Carl and share it with your friends, or check out our other podcast episodes from this year on our podcast page. And you can learn more about our education program by, of course, going to the education page. We try to make it easy for you to find things at Road Tulips. So drop me a line. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if we can work together. So that's it for this week. On behalf of Carl and myself, we will see you next time. That's it for this week. I hope you really loved this episode as much as I did. Thanks for listening. Learn more about how our experience and knowledge at Road Tulips can give your organization the strategic edge to reach its goals. Check out our website at roadtulips.com. We'd love to talk with you and see how we can work together. Thanks.